Hello and welcome to the General's Reviews. I'm Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80 from the Full Force podcast, and I'm joining Justin Bell from What's on Joe Mind and General's Joe's to bring you this review of the Vitruvian hacks Spartan, Cursed Spartan and Talos from Boss Fight Studio. Before Justin takes a look at the figures, let's have a look at some background on the characters. The Spartan character takes its cues from a number of versions of the legendary warrior soldier. Let's look at the facts first. Sparta was a city-state formed sometime in the 900s BC, before it was annexed in 192 BC. In 480 BC, a small army of Spartan, Theban and Thespian soldiers, around 1400, not the often mistaken 300, that's technically how many Spartans were in the group, led by King Leonidas, famously inflicted a huge amount of damage to the Persian army and Xerxes, making a legendary last stand at the Battle of Thermopylae. They were overcome in the end, but the numbers of Persian soldiers were vast, some believing that it could have been between 1 and 2 million soldiers. Spartans were born to fight and started very young. The children would be bathed in wine by the mother, and if they survived, would be brought before the Gerousia, a Spartan council of elders, by the child's father, and they would decide whether they would be reared or not. If they were considered weak or deformed, they would be thrown into a chasm on Mount Taygetus, known as the Apothetai. The classic look was very similar to their Greek neighbours, with the addition of a crimson tunic, cloak and long hair, as that symbolised being a free man. They wore helmets, bronze armour and used spears, shields and swords, just as we see from the hack Spartan. Films like 300 have taken some liberties with the Spartan, but you get the idea. Now I need to do about 1 million crunches to get those washboard abs. I'll be right back.
This is where we fight! This is where they die! And these shields, boys!
The Cursed Spartan is taken directly from myth and legend, obviously. Anyone that gazed upon Medusa's face would be turned to stone, which is exactly what you have with the Cursed Spartan figure. We see the effect on these poor men in films such as Clash of the Titans from 1981 and the remake in 2010.
Let them know men did this.
Talos, on the other hand, had a number of different origins, the main one being that he was a giant bronze automaton that protected Europa in Crete by circling the island's shores 3 times a day. This myth was explored in the film Jason and the Argonauts in 1963. Hera instructs Jason to remove a plug in Talos' heel to release his ichor, the golden liquid blood of the gods and immortals, to defeat him. The origin boss fight have given him is that of 4 identical enchanted statues that have been lost to the sea with a possible link to Poseidon. The army building factions will be rushing to obtain 3 more of these figures, I expect. I include myself in that. Justin is looking at all 3 figures in this review, as they all use the same body sculpt, repainted with different head sculpts and some varied accessories. So without further ado, here is Justin with the review.
Good evening, it's Justin from generalsjoes.com again, with part 2 of your first look at the Vitruvian hacks action figure line by Boss Fight Studios, doing a little unboxing, and in this case it really is going to be an unboxing instead of just an uncarding. We're looking at the Spartans. I did video part 1 looking at the Gorgons with Medusa, the Coral Gorgon, and the Black Racer Gorgon. In this case, we're looking at the first 3 Spartans who are available. You're looking at the Spartan Warrior right here. You're looking at Talos, the Eternal Warrior of Bronze, which I believe was a Kickstarter exclusive, the Bronze Spartan. And then we've got the Cursed Spartan over here, which is a Spartan that looked at Medusa a little bit too long and got turned to stone. So those are our 3 options here. Why don't we start with the Bronze Spartan first, the Kickstarter exclusive Talos. He is in just a plain white box, as a lot of these exclusives likely will be. Package design Troy McKee, card art Erica Henderson. Talos, the Eternal Warrior of Bronze. Commonly thought to be giant man of bronze, Talos is actually the name of a small group of 4 identical enchanted bronze statues and the eternal protectors of the island of Crete in the Mediterranean Sea. Gifts from Zeus, they roamed the shorelines of Crete, protecting Queen Europa from marauders, pirates, and even threats from below the waves. Temporal log. Over the centuries, the enchanted statues have been lost to sea and were never recovered. They would be an important historical find if uncovered. Last reported entering the sea to protect their queen from Poseidon's children, they were never seen again. Kind of a cool little touch. Not quite as big of a tie to potential stories in the present as the others, but certainly a little clue that they could still be roaming out there under the sea somewhere. It's pretty neat little story, a little tie into Poseidon. I don't think there's any plans for Bossfight to make any Poseidon figures, but the cool things about these Hacks toys is that they'll be coming out with a bunch of blanks, and I know one of those blanks, I believe, is a blue form that could look like some kind of water being, so that could always work out well. So you can see they're just a single strip of tape in the white box. Pull it out. Wow. Got a little clamshell underneath. Oop, we got stuff falling all over the place. And there's Talos. It also says, it's a small group of 4 identical enchanted bronze statues. So, if you're a proper army builder, although I don't know how you can do that with these being Kickstarter exclusives, but the right kind of army builder would have 4 of these bad boys, so I feel like I'm somehow failing. I've only got 1. Looking at him first, we haven't looked at the regular Spartans or anything like that, so I can't tell you how many parts this guy shares quite yet, but we'll look at him first as kind of a foundation. And the first thing you'll notice is his deco is crazy. I mean, he's supposed to be a bronze Spartan, an enchanted statue, and that is really what he looks like. The various colors of gold and almost greenish marble are really detailed and intricate. You could really kind of see how the paint mixes together and one color kind of blends into the other to really give you a nice aged, ancient statue kind of look. So it's a very cool looking decoed figure. And then he's got all of these little accessories. He's got a spear. Once again, like Medusa's stone, or like the Gorgon stone sword, it is a rigid plastic. A great looking deco shield. Nice sword. Once again, rigid plastic. The trusty Bossfight Studio stand. We've got the same, well, no, it's not the same. It's a sheath for his sword. His great ornamental helmet. And then a couple extra bronze hands. And here you can look at the back of the figure and you actually see he's got a little clip thing on the back there. And I'm kind of winging this, I don't have any instructions here. I'm kind of doing what I think works best. And your mileage may vary. That's the beautiful thing about the hack system, the highly articulated character custom or character kit system, is that you could do whatever the heck you want. Put the strap over his chest like that, and you can hold this. You can have the sheath along his back. The sword fits in there extremely well. It fits nice and snug, but it's not too snug. So it looks really good. There's certain parts of the Hacks figures especially that I thought were best expressed with motion rather than still pictures, so I wanted to at least do some sort of video recap of the figures. The helmet fits really, really well. It's somewhat rigid but somewhat soft. Fits very snug over his head. The shield is the same kind of clasp system that we saw with the Gorgons, and it looks like the same size handle, so the handle might be a little bit too small, but the clasp itself, once you pinch it closed, fits really well. And that's the beautiful thing about this figure. You can see just by looking at it just how easily you can pull out the accessories, swap them out, pull off the hand, swap out a hand. It really was that easy. That was, I've had figures with removable parts like that before, and it's not quite that easy to get those parts swapped out. With the Hacks figures, I'm happy to say it really is that easy. So it's pretty amazing how they blend all these different colors together to really give you a nice overall kind of bronze statue look. The handle isn't quite as long as Medusa's stone sword, so obviously there's not going to be any kind of two-handed grips or anything like that with this particular guy. And I'm happy to say, like, this kind of tunic thing that he's wearing, it's all one piece, but it's very flexible, pretty well balanced. Figure is. My balance is a little screwy, but get him to stand really, really well. Extremely highly articulated. Like most of the figures that you get, that you're used to with Boss Fight Studio, he's, execution-wise, he's pretty flawless. It is Talos, the bronze, or Eternal Warrior of Bronze, with all these different accessories and everything. I'll be honest, he's not quite as exciting as the Gorgons, but he's still pretty darn cool. The sculpting on his head is fantastic. These shin guards are nice and tight. If they do come off, they do. That's pretty impressive. Those shin guards are, I don't know how much measuring they had to do to get those shin guards on like that. But that was tough to come off, but it did come off. Got a nicely contoured leg. Looks like probably the typical blank / Spartan body style. And of course, doing this, I realize I never did this with any of the Gorgons, so we'll have to fix that. But and the boot gauntlet is very smushy. It's kind of a soft material, so it can wrap around the contours of his leg. And the gauntlets on the Gorgons are the same way. So that is a great looking Talos, Eternal Warrior of Bronze. These removable vests can be a little hit or miss. I know, being a G.I. Joe fan, I've dealt with them quite a bit in the past few years. These seem to work pretty well. They hook back on and stay back on pretty nicely. They don't kind of split and drift like they do. They are softer than some of the newer G.I. Joe vests. They're not quite as rigid. Great artwork on the front. Once again, the art by James Griffiths, package design by Troy McKee. Those unfortunate souls that found themselves gazing into the Gorgon sisters' cursed eyes were turned to stone. The curse is very nearly a fate worse than death, as it leaves the victim completely conscious of the world around them. More tragic is that the curse magically heightens their senses to godlike levels. Not only are they imprisoned in their own bodies, but they can hear sounds from miles away and clearly see for many miles, even through walls and structures. A victim's only hope is that the curse can be lifted if the Gorgon that turned them is slain. There are thousands of statues spread across Greece. Legend says that if Medusa and her sisters were killed, the cursed warriors would turn human again. What if there are more to killing them than they knew at the time? Some sort of arcane ritual that was never completed. Could those statues be cursed humans that have been suffering for thousands of years? So once again, a nice look at the temporal log, a possibility of carrying this story on to modern era. Flip that card art out again, and once again you can see no tears, nothing like that. Very collector friendly. Looks very similar to, relatively similar to what we saw with Talos. His tunic isn't chainmail, it's more of a flat piece of armor. But he's got the sword, he's got the helmet, he's got the same spear. It's how you get mileage out of tooling in the action figure world these days. I mean, you look at any action figures out there, whether you're talking about Masters of the Universe Classic, whether you're talking about Marvel Legends, Star Wars, obviously G.I. Joe. Transformers Combiner Wars has, done parts reuse, made it into an art form the past year or two. But that doesn't, it still makes for some really excellent figures, even with having to reuse parts. And when you're reusing really amazing looking parts like these, then obviously it's not such a big deal. There's the Boss Fight Studio stand. Got a couple of his stone-colored hands. The same shield that was with the Talos, I believe. Looks like it. The same sword. Does not come with a sheath. He comes with a spear. And the figure himself is, pretty much the general Spartan type figure. He's got slightly different slightly different looking leg armor. It's not quite as ornate as the bronze statue. He's got the same sandaled feet though. The bronze statue, you see, has kind of those little decos on those little ridges on the side. He doesn't have those. This cursed stone Spartan is just basically stone, and what makes him cool is that the stone deco on him, and I don't know how well you can tell through the video. Hopefully when I do my pictures, you'll be able to tell, but he's got this like gray paint and then this black overspray that gives him some texture. You can see these wear marks on the back here. He looks like he's made out of stone, which is pretty impressive. And again, he's got this flat tunic rather than the chainmail like the cursed Spartan does. Extremely highly articulated, of course. Shield works the same way. It's got the same clasp. One cool thing about these shields, too, I don't know if anybody has seen the little tutorial that Boss Fight Studio put up at one time, but you see these little eye holes throughout the shield right here? You can actually take a little piece of string and tie the string through there and then put the shield on their back. So that's a pretty cool little Easter egg they kind of threw out there. A really neat thing, and something that they were pretty infamous for doing throughout their time at Hasbro was adding these funky Easter eggs throughout all their lines, like G.I. Joe and Star Wars, etc., etc. His helmet's got some cool little wear marks on the side there. Like I said, I really wanted to show people kind of what these guys, how they can move, because you can't always express how cool these things are in pictures alone. But I don't think I won't be taking any pictures. I'll be taking plenty of pictures, but I just kind of wanted to get folks to see these real quick up front. And you can see he's very posable. This like the bronze warrior. He's got a very flexible material there, so his legs can still move really well. It's cut high in the shoulder, so he doesn't lose any articulation in the shoulder. It's completely and totally excellent, fully articulated, no blocked range of motion, a really great basic kind of stone warrior. And the deco is really what makes the figure great, with the brushed gray and dark overspray that makes him really stand out. That is the cursed Spartan. Last but certainly not least, get out of there, we have the Spartan warrior. One might say the one that started it all. One of the first shots we got was of a Spartan, versus a Gorgon figure, and this has kind of been Boss Fight Studios' hallmark, is the whole Spartan mythology. And just by looking at it, you can tell he's pretty similar to what we got with the cursed Spartan. Card art by James Griffiths again, package design by Troy McKee again. Same old stuff on the back. Fearless Spartan Army was the world's first elite fighting force, trained in, I'm not going to pronounce that right, trained in their style of fighting, the Agogi. Since childhood, the art of combat was not just an occupation, it was a way of life. These mighty warriors would spend their lives in the service of Sparta, forming a wall of men instead of bricks. They will defend to their last breath their lands and its people from the invading armies, including the rampaging Gorgon horde. Only a foe this deadly could persuade Sparta to ally themselves with their longtime rival, Athens. Temporal log. The Spartan warriors were a force that had no equal and may not have had any since their time. A true Spartan hero longed for two things in this world, glory upon the battlefield and ultimately a beautiful death. For the latter, the Gorgon horde is more than happy to oblige. So again, not much connection to the modern times as some of the others did, but a pretty cool bio just the same. Very nice. It's got the original kind of Vitruvian man over there. We've got another spear. Rigid plastic again. Different shield this time. Spartan shield is a little bit different. Different logo. Here's the Spartan himself. The smooth armor, like the cursed Spartan warrior, a bearded head, helmet with a nice ornate top, same sword, just in some different colors with a little bronze handle and silver blade. Here's the stand. Stands are great, incorporating their logo in there very nicely. Got a couple hands. Move over there again. Got the same sheath that came with the Talos. Two different swords, a longer one and a smaller one. Both rigid plastic again. And here's the Spartan warrior. Very cool. I love the colors, the white, red, and blue, as well as the gold. Very well articulated, like all these figures are. Everybody, when they watched that movie 300, was all feeling bad about their own physiques, but very cool. Moves very well, very seamless. Of course, he can take off he just doesn't slip off quite as easily like Talos did, but just take the head off. You heard me explain kind of with one of the Gorgon sisters that they've got that double-ended neck joint pieces. You can see that time it came out of the neck itself, and you might be bummed thinking, oh no, I can't use regular heads on there, but this is a double-sided little barbell type shape, so you could conceivably work around that. What's really amazing to me is how well they've integrated the joints here in this full range of motion. These little ball joints in the middle. I think during the blank review, I may try taking one apart just to show how it works, but just from a figure perspective, it's a great looking Spartan. There's his armor back on. 2 different swords, because holding 2 swords is badass. There really doesn't have to be any other reason besides that. I've seen so many little Q&As where toy collectors, why did you do that? That was, that's pretty neat. Why did you do that? The designer will say, because it's cool. I mean, that's really a lot of the reason why some of these things are done, is just because it's neat. And, again, I have to wonder how badly I'm butchering this whole sheath idea. It doesn't seem to fit real well like that. I'm sure there's a better way for me to do it. I mean, maybe one of these days I'll look at actual pictures before I do one of these things. Lord knows I've looked at so many pictures of these Spartans. I should have it memorized by now, but I don't. I'll make sure I have it fixed for any kind of picture review that I do, just so I've got things straight that way. And the helmet just slides right on perfectly. It stands very nicely. That is one nice looking figure. I'm so impressed with what I'm seeing here. I mean, yeah, I'm friends with the Boss Fight guys. I've kind of been on this ride the whole way through, but I got to appreciate good toys, and it's taken a while for us to get to this point, but I'll be damned if these aren't some really, really fantastic toys. I'm not even big into Greek mythology. I'm not, I watched 300 a couple of times. It's about the extent of my love of Sparta. Although I will say, my introduction to the whole legend of Spartans and Xerxes and all that was the file cards for the Cobra La Royal Guard mentioned, the Battle of 300 actually, and I always thought that was pretty cool. But that was about as far as my love of Sparta went. So the fact that I really enjoy these figures, being a modern military buff, is a testament to kind of how cool they are. The posability, obviously the scale is great. They're 4-inch figures. I've got a Baroness here that I can kind of hold up just in comparison. Never go anywhere without a Baroness figure handy. So you can see kind of about how tall they are. The sculpting is fantastic. Dave Proctor and Fred Axon are the Boss Fight Studio sculptors, and the detail they can get in a 4-inch scale is absolutely totally mind-blowing. The overall design work by Eric and Andrew and Trina, and the sculpting, the paint work by Eric, and it's just, it's incredible. The fact that, coming from where they came from and the end results, they have actually produced a physical product out of their own imagination, out of the support of thousands of Kickstarter supporters, it was amazing to be a part of that and to watch it happen. Obviously, I put my own share of money towards it, but it's a really great feeling to kind of see it birthed and see it evolve and see it turn into an actual physical product that can be purchased and bought and played with. After doing some of those Gorgon video reviews, I actually, the Black Racer, me and my 6-year-old just sat there and played with the Black Racer for 90 minutes. And she beat on that thing. She bent its arm one way and back way. She took the headdress off, took the swords out, was playing around and clashing things together. And it held up fine, no broken pieces. I mean, she loved it. The tails didn't, all fall apart. It was a really high-quality toy. Now, I don't know if I'd recommend doing that. The figures do say, ages 15 and up. They are definitely collector's items. They're not necessarily toys to be given to your 6-year-old. And, I watched her pretty closely while she was playing with it, but they're fun. You can pose them, you can move them, anything you can think to do, they can do. They're completely and utterly customizable. I haven't even touched on the customizability of them yet. And it's just incredible the level of detail that you can get. at a 4-inch scale with these figures. I mean, it's really pretty amazing. Forgetting even the fact that you've got your totally newly engineered snake tail. That is a pretty impressive feat of technology. I mean, it's really amazing. It's very cool. But there's just so much cool stuff in this line. A lot of toy lines. I get really excited when I see pictures. I get them in hand, and I'm like, oh, this was fun, but it didn't quite live up to what I imagined it might. This is almost the opposite. Like, I looked at the figures, I'm like, yeah, they look really cool. I'm sure I'll mess with them. And then as I've been playing with them, I've been learning more and more things about them and appreciating them even more. It's kind of been the opposite scenario than your typical other toy line. So anyway, that's the look at the Spartans. And I know I've rambled on, and I always hear we got to keep these video reviews short, or else people will lose interest, and I just talk way too much. But there's the 3 Spartans. You got the Spartan Warrior, you got the Cursed Spartan, you've got the Eternal Bronze Warrior Talos. Very cool group of figures. I really can't wait to dig into some more, and hopefully you enjoyed this. I may take a quick look at the blanks coming up, but let's get these up first, and we'll kind of go from there. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will be talking to you soon. Stay tuned to www.generalsjoes.com for the photo reviews, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for watching this review by Justin Bell of generalsjoes.com and What's on Joe Mind, and from myself, Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80 from the Full Force. If you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think on any of our numerous social networking platforms. Goodbye, and see you next time for another General's Review.